This report examines the life and death of Shawn Ryan Grell. Grell was an individual whose actions led to profound tragedy and a life spent incarcerated. His death marks the final chapter in a case that highlights extreme violence and complex legal issues. At the time of his death, Shawn Ryan Grell was 50 years old. He was serving a life sentence within the Arizona state prison system. His status as an inmate defined the final decades of his existence. Give a like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Shawn Ryan Grell died on April 19th. His death occurred while he was an inmate at the ASPC Tucson facility. This facility is part of the Arizona Department of Corrections Rehabilitation and Reentry System. The Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation and Reentry confirmed his death. They released information regarding the date and location. The circumstances surrounding his passing are currently under investigation. The specific cause of death remains undetermined publicly. An investigation is standard procedure in inmate deaths. The county medical examiner's office is involved in this process. Their role is to conduct an examination. This helps to establish the medical cause and manner of death. The clarity of how Shawn Ryan Grell died is presently lacking. Details regarding the events immediately preceding his death have not been released. The investigation aims to provide a full account. Until its conclusion, the precise circumstances remain unclear. Shawn Ryan Grell was serving a life sentence for a horrific crime. The victim of this crime was his own daughter. This fact underscores the disturbing nature of the case. His daughter was only 2 years old at the time. Her young age makes the crime particularly heinous. She was a vulnerable child, dependent on her parent. The victim's name was Kristen Salem. She was the subject of her father's fatal actions. Her life was tragically cut short before it had barely begun. The crime occurred in December 1999. This date marks the point when Grell committed the act that would define his life and lead to his incarceration. It was a crime committed during the holiday season. Grell's actions involved a calculated deception. He initially promised his daughter a trip. The promise was to see Christmas lights, a common holiday activity. This promise was a lure. After picking up his daughter, he did not take her to see lights. Instead, he drove to a remote desert area. The location of the crime was near Mesa, Arizona. This area provided the isolation Grell sought. It was a deliberate choice of setting for his planned actions. His preparation for the crime was methodical. Before driving to the remote area, he made specific stops. These stops were crucial to his plan. He first drove to a department store. The purpose of this stop was to acquire necessary materials. This indicates premeditation. At the department store, he purchased a gas can. This item was essential for the method he intended to use. It was a deliberate acquisition for a specific purpose. Following the purchase of the can, he bought gasoline. This fuel would serve as the accelerant in his crime. Obtaining it was the next step in his preparation. With the gas can and gasoline acquired, he proceeded to the chosen location. He drove to a remote desert area in East Mesa. This isolated spot was where the crime would take place. A method of murder was brutal and deliberate. Upon reaching the remote area, he removed his daughter from the vehicle. He then placed the 2-year-old child on the ground. With the child on the ground, he applied the accelerant. He doused the toddler with the gasoline he had purchased. This act was a direct precursor to the fatal injury. The final horrific act was setting the fire. He ignited the gasoline covering his daughter. This action inflicted catastrophic injuries upon the child. The victim's final moments were marked by suffering. After being set on fire, the 2-year-old child attempted to escape. She crawled approximately 10 feet from the initial spot. Despite her struggle, her injuries were too severe. The burns sustained were unsurvivable. She succumbed to her injuries in the desert. Following the crime, Shawn Ryan Grell was apprehended and faced legal proceedings. These proceedings culminated in his conviction. The trial determined his guilt in the death of his daughter. He was convicted in 2001. This was approximately 2 years after the crime occurred. The conviction marked the formal legal finding of his responsibility. Grell was convicted of multiple crimes. The primary charge was first-degree murder. This conviction reflected the premeditated nature of the killing. He was also convicted of robbery. The details surrounding the robbery charge in relation to the murder are part of the case record. Both convictions contributed to his sentencing. His initial sentence was the death penalty. The severity of the crime, particularly the murder of a child, led to this outcome. The death sentence is the most severe punishment available under the law. However, this sentence was later commuted. The commutation occurred in 2013. This change altered the course of his punishment significantly. The authority for the commutation was the Arizona Supreme Court. The state's highest court reviewed his case. Their ruling led to the modification of his sentence. The reason cited for the commutation was the court's determination that he had mental retardation. This legal finding impacted the applicability of the death penalty. Supreme Court rulings have established limitations on executing individuals with intellectual disabilities. Based on this determination, his sentence was changed. The commuted sentence was life in prison. This meant he would spend the remainder of his natural life incarcerated. The effect of this ruling was significant. It spared him from execution. While he remained guilty of the crime, the form of his punishment was altered from death to life imprisonment. Following the commutation of his sentence, Shawn Ryan Grell remained incarcerated. He continued to serve the life sentence imposed by the court. His confinement was a consequence of the heinous act he committed against his daughter. He spent over 2 decades in state custody. His life within the prison system was the reality after his conviction and sentencing. The prison environment became his permanent residence. Shawn Ryan Grell passed away while serving his life sentence. His death occurred within the confines of the prison facility. This marks the end of his life story, one tragically intertwined with extreme violence and the justice system.